Yeah, he notified Frank.
Yeah. Those are turning slow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is 7:02, and we'll call this meeting of the Old Saybrook Board of Education in order, and we will start with pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, all right, we will start with any correspondence, Karen.
No, we have the correspondence this evening.
No correspondence, that makes it easy, okay. And then we'll move over to our reports from the Student Board of Education representatives.
So for the student rep body, we report sheet for September 24th.
You can speak a little louder.
Okay. So I'll start with some academics. The Camp Days trip for the freshmen happened last Friday, went very well and they enjoyed it a lot. The cancer walk for 2025 is reaching a finalized date, and there is now a math lab where students tutor other students and help with math. For sports, the football team is 0-1, and they have their next game, Morgan, this Friday. Field hockey, they're 2-1, having their next game at North Branford this Friday. Girls soccer are 1-1, having their next game this Thursday at Valley. Boys are 4-1, having their next game this Friday at Valley, and cross country are having their next meet on the 25th.
And on to clubs. Ecology Club had their first cleanup on the 21st, which was at Town Beach. Drama Club begins rehearsals the week of the 16th, so they began last week. There's a new club. It's Sports Media, which manages student sports photography to make sure everyone gets pictures and they are edited and everything. Yearbook had their first meeting on the 12th. DECA now has enough money in the budget for Blazers, and they're going to leadership conference at the AquaTurf in December. The first meeting of Musings was on the 12th, and the German Club is opening up again on the 30th. Student government is electing new representatives, and the Rambler September edition is to be released this week. And then onto our student opinion section, the Securely Pass app is still very disliked by people. Freshmen are having a difficult time transitioning to high school because of the grading system that goes on at the middle school. And then students want the out-of-country insurance renewed for the opportunity of more international trips in the future, such as Quebec for the French students and Spain for the Spanish students. And there are mixed feelings on the new Rams logo.
Thank you so much. Any questions for our board reps?
Well, I have a question that's really probably not for you to answer. I appreciate the report. Can we talk a little bit about that difficulty of the transition? I thought that we were trying to align better between the middle school and the high school. And so that's, you know, are we exploring what that transition, what that difficulty is and how we can bridge the gap there and support the students a little bit better? I don't know if Krista or Joe want to take that question.
You know, I can speak from the high school, and Dave and I mentioned this in our meetings with the kids, particularly the freshmen, in terms of they're moving from, you know, standard space, and it's an adjustment, I think, in terms of the level of work. So that's a, you know, that's a broader conversation in terms of easing that transition. There normally, in my experience, I've been in this for over 30 years, there usually is a bump in the road between middle school and high school. There's that adjustment period. And I think our freshman teachers are also cognizant of that and are kind of bringing the kids along, but it can be a little bit of a shock in terms of, you know, you've got 8 classes, you're moving for all the classes, even though we drop 2, you know, Tuesday through Friday. Part of it is getting the rhythm of high school, the organizational skills, And we've been cognizant of that and trying to work that more into the general curriculum as it stands. So my gut tells me that by the end of October, they'll kind of be more in the swing of things. And we're always having conversations in terms of, the overall picture, at the DLT level in terms of how we're moving, pre-K through 12. I don't know, Krista, if you want to add anything.
Sure. We know that the systems for grading are different between the two buildings. The goal in the middle school is to make sure that students have met the standards and skills that they're going to need walking into those high school classes. That's why we have a standards-based system. It's meant to make sure that all students are meeting those standards and excelling beyond them when possible. So that's kind of the basis of the system. Before the students left last year from the middle school, we actually reviewed a couple of times through the 8th grade teachers what a regular traditional grading system looks like, how it works, so forth, based on recommendations made by the high school teachers as far as what they see as possible issues for students understanding the grading system. So if that continues to be a concern, then Joe and I will continue to talk, and we'll continue to talk with the staff up there.
Thanks, you guys.
Just to put a bow on that, we actually had a conversation yesterday at DLT about that very sort of holistic view of, from a district perspective during the whole goal setting process of making sure we're aligning, not just between the high school and the middle school, but obviously with Goodwin as well, even with pre-K. So it is a timely conversation that we just had yesterday in this very room. So yeah, we are looking.
Check.
Thank you again, JV and Sam. I really love this section, the student opinions.
Yeah.
My question for Joe and for Chris, what's the next step in involving students in these conversations when they're identifying issues or questions, topics? What is the next step for the students to be engaged in the conversation?
So we started the conversation, Mr. A and I had our first super meeting to really establish, I think we posed the question back to the kids. I know what they were traditionally used to with that organization, but what do they want that to look like? What was more beneficial for them? And really allow them the opportunity to sort of go back and talk amongst themselves for the next time we meet, to really open up that communication on, let's get something tangible out of these discussions. I think adding the student opinion part here makes us aware of what's, what's on the forefront of their mind and their opinions. And it allows us the opportunity to engage with kids more, to find out how can we meet them where they want to be as opposed to just where we think they need to be. So there's the first month yet, but we're getting there.
And I thank you. I love the student opinion section, so thank you for bringing that to our attention. I wonder if you could just talk a little bit more about the Securely Pass issue. Is it an adjustment period that's needed, or
Well, I think
what's the problem?
I think it certainly with anything is an adjustment period. I feel like there's a lot of new things that are going on this year. But people it's really just a general, like, people feel it's an inconvenience. Cause it just it's new, so it's not super, and not everyone's super comfortable with it yet. And it's just like, if you want to go anywhere or do anything, it's just an extra step. There's like a kiosk, and then you can also use your phone, but also phones are discouraged. Right. And then I don't think teachers are entirely clear on how to use it either. So people just find it inconvenient, really.
Just a follow up, and then do we have any feedback from the staff on it? How it's working for the staff at the school?
Yeah, actually, that was it's kind of a running agenda topic for our faculty meetings and take the pulse. And I know that Dave offered up a chance for staff to send any questions. He's kind of been the go-to person. And again, we're trialing this through January, and we're going to give it a chance, work out the kinks. It is just under its initial rollout only for a few weeks, although it was piloted a little bit by a few teachers last year toward the end of the year. So they kind of became the experts that could also help their colleagues. So again, and it's a running topic on Suprin, and we're going to get kid feedback as well throughout this. So teachers, I think some teachers are more, tech comfortable. We didn't get a kiosk for every classroom because we didn't want to commit to that financially until we knew we were going to sign on with it. So we've kind of been picking and choosing. It was kind of a first come, first serve. IT was able to get us some iPads and things that weren't being used. So we had about 10 go out to teachers. So we'll review it.
So actually having you, both of you on the Board of Education is vitally important because we'll always ask about, your feedback. So my question is, how do you get the feedback from students? Because that's always been a challenge.
So usually, for me, how I get feedback is I just go up to anyone, usually, someone that's comfortable talking about what they think, and I just ask them, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? Like, with the Rams logo, I ask just personally, what do you guys think of the new Rams logo? Would you prefer the old one or the new one? And that's just kind of how I'm mostly getting feedback.
Did they ever present feedback just on their own without you prompting?
Well, a lot of high schoolers are very outspoken, I find. There's a lot of opinions being thrown around all the time about everything. So it's just about beyond like a statement, like JB was talking about, like, I don't like this, then it's like, okay, why? Like, can you explain that? And then seeing what other people feel like, and then kind of like a general consensus is what we wind up putting down here for you guys.
And you do a cross section of students, so all sorts of, well, so much.
I have a question about the Rams logo. Is there, I think it's great, but I obviously there's mixed feelings, and I don't know if you want to share more detail about that, but is there, additional change management that is going along with rolling it out, or what does that look like?
Putting me in a really awkward spot. So I was approached as well, through two student journalists. And as it was mentioned in the board report, that the latest edition of the Rambler is not out yet, which is why I'm parsing my words carefully. But one of the questions that was posed to me was, did you just do this? And the answer was no, there was a story behind it. And I think that the tenor of the conversation shifted a bit once the student journalists realized, oh, there's more to this than just we're gonna blanketly change it. And then we had a continuing discussion about sort of that next step of student involvement, that I have to leave there. You'll all read about it very soon.
Excellent.
Just a little more qualifying kind of feedback as to the information that came from the freshmen having a difficult transition. Was that something that people were mentioning to you directly? Or did that filter from the teachers, or I know, like, where did that stem from? Is it too much homework, or is it, wow, the teachers are grading us really hard? Do you have a sense on any of that?
Well, where I gathered that information was, speaking to a lot of the people that I just go to school with who have siblings that just started the high school. So it's like they are in it and they have a very good understanding of what it's like. And then they're seeing their younger sibling then start. And it's really just, adjusting to like homework and workload is a standard thing coming into high school. But I think it's the fact that they're going from like just a 1 to 4 standards based grading to then like understanding like what an 85 is, what a 95 is, what work kind of warrants that. And so for now, it's only 3 weeks into the school year, but for now they're having a difficult time with that. And I spoke to some teachers about that to kind of feel from their perspective what it was. But I don't think it's detrimental. I don't think that they'll be totally have a hard time forever. It's just the adjustment period.
Thank you.
I'd love to. I love the feedback too on the international trips. I know this has been something that's been going on and kind of been like a topic for a couple of different years within the student body. So would be interested to understand what maybe we need to explore to continue that or evaluate that. And I don't know if you have any comment on that or not, but if not, we can bring it back for a future board meeting.
Being taped, so I'll be careful what I say. That question has been brought to both Dr. Fletcher and I, and we are in the process of finding out what the possible next steps would be. There are certain things, obviously, when you're traveling internationally, that you have to check certain boxes, that we are currently exploring with the hope to have more to report back that I think any student who is involved would enjoy. But again, you're asking me questions that I'm gonna, and I can't give you full answers as much as I want to right now, but we are aware and we understand there is an appetite for that. And your teachers are advocating quite well for that as well. And I can't drown that enough for either. We're aware.
So just circling back to the feedback from the freshmen, it sounds like the feedback was received by a number of faculty or students, and is there gonna be a concerted effort, and if I missed that, excuse me, in terms of a focus group or, a survey or, you've got a captive audience with the freshmen, would it behoove us to ask them directly in some kind of form?
And I apologize if I'm misinterpreting. There's a number of different ways that we're actually exploring on how we're gonna reimagine how we solicit input from students. So, and again, the process it's not that the whole process was cumbersome in any way, but there are a lot of new kids involved in this as well. So we really said that first. I don't want to speak for you, Joe, but that first meeting that we had with Superin was, okay, this is what you've traditionally done. Are you getting the most benefit out of this? Is there a different way for us to look at this so that we can get more info directly from you? Because ultimately, we have to make decisions that we think are in the best interest, but you have to live with them. So that was one of the themes of our first meeting, and sort of a commitment to an openness of how we get kids more involved in the decision, and more importantly, how we showcase our kids more so than just us.
I guess I can add to that too, that our school leadership team, we meet bi-weekly. That's been a topic of discussion as well in terms of the transition. So we've got a group of teachers working on it as well to brainstorm better ways to communicate expectations and check in with kids.
Thank you, Joe.
It's just a quick question. So I know in the student report that you said that you had the budget for Blazers.
Well, there's our group called DECA, which is a club that basically like focuses on like business sort of things, like business management. I'm personally not in it, but are you in DECA? No, but they go to a lot of different conferences, and there's a lot of different schools that across all states that participate, and it's kind of like divided into state chapters. And they just kind of like discuss business proceedings, I guess, and it's a pretty standard thing that everyone in the club has like a blazer that they all wear. And they were able, because of their success with it, starting it last year, they were able to get it in the budget this year to suit that.
The only reason I mentioned it is because in the high school report, it said you were getting 2 blazers, so I wanted to make sure that everybody blazer.
I think it sounds like they swap them around for who's ever presenting at this point. That's how I interpret it, but I'm sure Joe might speak to it when he does his report.
I think we're phasing them in. So it's kind of like those old Century 21 commercials with the gold blazer. Just give it to realtor to realtor.
Yes, Jeff.
This might be a question for you. I love the conversation revolving around students and hearing more from the students. Is there an opportunity for us to invite more students to the board meetings to maybe celebrate things that they've done, or to hear a larger audience's opinion on certain matters? Is there a way that we can decide to create an additional forum?
Absolutely. Actually, Superintendent Dresek and I were talking about that this afternoon, about different opportunities for how we might be able to integrate that either into the things that are coming from administrative reports or potentially other opportunities. So yes, we will be looking at that moving forward. Yeah, thank you.
I was gonna say, we used to have them and they were beginning at Goodman School. So it wasn't just high school centric, but opportunities just to share.
Fantastic. All right, so we will move on next to our audience of citizens. There is no one here within the room. Trent, anyone online? No, okay. So then our next meeting, our agenda item is we'll need a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from September 10th. Moved by Jane. Second by Eileen. Any discussion?
I think on page 5, it indicates under the academic calendar that 2 were opposed. It indicates 2 abstained, and the motion carried 6-0-2. So I think that needs to be changed. Sorry. So it says motion carried 6-4-0 against, and 2 abstaining is what it indicates.
It should be 6-2-0.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Any other points of discussion? Okay, so without further ado, and with the amendment as noted, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, motion carries. Okay, so then we'll move into our next topic, which is teacher and administrator evaluation plans. Superintendent Drazak and Dr. Clark.
Actually gonna pass this along to Dr. Fletcher.
Good evening, everyone. How great it is to be back with you all. So this is just another update from our evaluation process that was approved back in May. Letting you know that our new evaluation process, which goes along with the state evaluation process, is up and swinging. We have had the opportunity to orient the staff, and we continue to provide those professional learning times for our staff to get used to the changes. One of the largest changes that we have participated in is inside of the professional learning communities. And this is, if you remember the old evaluation system, completely different. We have actually moved in a direction that allows us to tie both the evaluation and our professional learning, which the state had always tried to do, but maybe not had done well. We have had the opportunity to tie these two pieces together to make those classroom goals connected to the professional learning opportunities that they're doing. And we're also trying to anchor this inside of that collaborative feel so that teachers can build their capacity and their efficacy in helping our students in the classroom. What I highlighted here is some of the key points inside of our plan. One of the major things that changes inside of our plan is the dates. Previously, we had October, no, actually it was November 15th as a previous date for us to set goals. The state moved all of those dates up by about a month. So I don't know why it didn't show up here, but inside the document is actually 10/15 when we set our teacher goals. But inside of this first chart, it's 10/1 for some reason. So right now we have had one PLC meeting that our teachers have participated in. Coming up on our half-day mark, we're gonna have our second professional learning community meeting where all of our teachers are going to have the opportunity to be together, discuss, and continue to fine-tune their plans. And then they'll be moving right into their goal setting meetings, moving into their mid-year meetings, and then having the end of year meetings on June 13th. A lot of this is still centered around good instruction, finding out what their students need, collecting that data and information for their kids. That is what we're trying to build the capacity of, and we're also trying to ease everybody into the new process. One thing that we're moving away from is having a software-centered system. We've had a lot of technology that was very cumbersome inside of the process. People had to take time to learn the process, to learn where forms were. Now we're moving in a direction that allows us to just collect this information more fluently. Which is easing the burden of trying to learn a new evaluation plan as well as a new technological system. So that has been one thing that has been extremely helpful. And another piece is that we are working together as an administrative team, just as Superintendent Drazak mentioned, to talk about goals, narrow down our focus, and actually provide opportunities and structures for our teachers to feel successful by building out structures that allow them to collaborate with each other. Inside of our PL plan and the evaluation plan, we have scheduled 9 professional learning community meetings. In different iterations of using our PLCs, teachers are scrambling and looking for time outside of the school day, outside of already planned meetings, to come together as a group to do that learning. We removed that obstacle for them, and we were able to reimagine some of our professional learning days that we already have scheduled inside of our school calendar for them to come together and meet. That way they didn't have to get together in their group and say, okay, what date works for you? That doesn't work for me. We're looking inside of what we have built and creating opportunities for learning to take place. There are multiple meetings that happen and they're intentionally scheduled before each of those major dates inside of our goal setting, review, and end of year events. That was something that we want to make sure that we had multiple opportunities for teachers to touch base and plan and learn together before they actually committed to that goal, reviewed the goal, and submit their findings for their classrooms. Very similarly, inside of the leadership plan, you'll see those same 3 key dates. The only difference, knowing that administrators are working with educators in that goal setting and review process leading to the end of the year, their process is stretched a little further down the line. So where our teachers have a 10-15 goal setting date, our leaders have a 11-1 date. So it gives enough time for them to review the work that's happening, the structures they're building in their building before they actually move forward inside their plan. Well, one thing that we're pairing is that idea of professional learning communities. The DLT is working together, the district leadership team is working together to build those structures, to build the goals, and collaborating, building our own capacity and efficacy in order to ensure that our teachers see that we're modeling the same process that we're asking them to work inside of, but then also it's matched with the same type of learning events that we're asking our teachers to participate in as they're going through their goal setting process. So we're actually operating as one district with one vision around professional learning and how that learning can lead to better success for our students. Same thing here, the 9 PLC dates are dates that we're using because we have pre-structured DLT meetings. We're able to capitalize and utilize that time and not try to tack on additional time. So we're using our time that we already have built into our schedules, but we're just reimagining how we can use that time to better our system. So yeah, that's pretty good.
Question, Dr. Fleck, about the PLCs. I've read in your report that they're self-selected. The teachers. So how many teachers comprise a PLC?
So we were able to look at how many teachers we would have minimum and maximum.
Okay.
For a PLC to exist, we need a minimum of 3 teachers.
Oh.
You get 2 to disagree, 1 to referee.
Okay.
That way you're not just working in a pair, you actually could have some thinking happening. Maximum, we have 6.
And are they well, it'd be different in the high school, obviously. So formed based on subject matter or grade level? How is that done?
Either or.
Oh.
So one thing that we're using, we have the our vision of high quality instruction. And one of the pieces that we're really having a focus on is student outcome. Now, because we're focused on high quality instruction and student outcome, we're not really tied to a grade level. We're not tied to a content area because we're focused on what does good instruction look like? How do we get to those outcomes? This provides a lot of flexibility for our teachers to look beyond their grade level, beyond their school building. Are we seeing that happen? Not necessarily, not in year 1. Teachers are finding it more comforting to go back to their tribes,
Yeah.
their groups,
Yeah.
their safety net,
Yeah.
the people who they know are going to be able to support them because they have that history there.
Okay.
So I imagine as we move forward in the future, people will feel that ability to want to branch out. But for year 1, while we're still learning how this system goes together, grade levels, departments are kind of sticking together. And then we have a couple of outliers who are like, well, I really wanted to branch out and go with that group over there. And then I turned around and I saw my whole team was over there.
Yeah.
So then they're like drifting back to their team. But I imagine once we
It'll
become more
evolve, yeah.
comfortable and learn,
Okay, thank you.
they'll feel that.
Two questions. One is, after the reflection at the end of the year, is there guidance or a step to then incorporate that feedback into the next year?
The whole goal of this, oh, and I should have said that earlier, one of the major changes inside of the state issue plan is that teachers can now select a 1, 2, or 3-year plan. So the goal of this is always intended for teachers to take that learning and bring it immediately back to the classroom. So learning that's happening inside of their PLC is intended for them to immediately put into the classroom. So we're always looking for them, and they should always be looking to take the learning, take the feedback that they're receiving and move it directly into the classroom and see if that is going to help all of our students.
Okay, and then with respect to the end of year reflection, I imagine there's an opportunity to then reflect on how did the self-selection of the PLCs work? How did that impact results? What do we wanna, so is there, like, do you float through or collect feedback specifically on that so that that can help guide how the PLCs should be structured and how to create that safety for the teachers to be able to feel comfortable in a new situation with new people from a different school?
This year is the year where I have my roller skates on.
Yeah.
I am going to be drifting in and out, but it's not something that I'm inside of a silo. All the members of DLT will be also working their way into the PLC meetings. And that's one of the beautiful things about this. Having a PLC model in terms of our evaluation puts a lot of the responsibility and ownership into the hands of the teachers. So they are free to choose what they want to learn about, what they're passionate about, and also looking at, well, here's a problem in my classroom. And I see students may not be getting to where the standards or the expectation is. How can I get them there? What do I need to learn to do that? We're trying to really promote that psychological safety inside of this while we're trying to teach people about it. And because teachers are working together this way, it frees up a lot of our administrators to go and see. So that's also something that we're trying to promote, and something that our plan promotes is the ability for our administrators to float inside of the PLCs, but also have opportunities to see classrooms and see classrooms in a more organic nature and how they're really intended to run, instead of having these very structured, planned, isolated meetings where they see instruction happen in a vacuum.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Just a quick question, probably as an educator, I would imagine that some of these teachers, partnering with kindergarten teacher and high school teacher, they're very different goals that you want to accomplish. So you may have an overarching goal, whatever that might be. But then that's hard because sometimes you're trained differently. In the high school, you have a certain certification. Early childhood is another. So my question is, do teachers ever question, what they're trying to accomplish with the cross-section of staff?
So right now, we don't have the cross-section of staff, but I can understand where you may see the developmental levels of students being different. But at the end of the day, we're still looking at these end outcomes for students. And we're looking for the transfer of knowledge from that goal or target that the teacher is providing during a lesson. And we want to see students applying that to whatever other tasks that they're trying to complete. We want to see students engaging in discourse and making their thinking visible, either through conversation or through writing. We want to make sure that students have a clear understanding of they're setting a goal. And I'm not the only one as the educator in the room with that lesson setting the goal, but that students are also having ownership to say, I know where I am with respect to that goal, and and I know what I need to do to get to the next level. And I think looking at it through that level and that lens may also help us address some of the things that we were talking about earlier that was shared in the student reports. Because now students will be able to see where they are with respect to a standard or a scale that's going to be measured and know where they need to get to. No matter if they're in middle school or high school, that still remains the same. So if students are taking part in that goal setting process, and if teachers are aware of that is the outcome that I'm trying to get for my students, then we'll be able to bridge more of those gaps.
I think it's a conversation that this board has had over time, not this board, but how do you get students involved, you know, so it's not a new idea.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, the feedback and so that, you know, it's sort of like not putting the program on a shelf, but really operationalizing it.
Absolutely.
So it's not something that's new, but making it have some glue.
Yes.
Thanks.
So first PLC down, right?
First
So,
down.
yeah, key insights or things that we are kind of targeting along the course of the remaining cycles.
Still making still making the thinking inside the plan visible.
Mhm.
That's one of the key targets. I have a meeting scheduled with Heston tomorrow. I've had meetings with Krista. I know I'll be making my way into the high school. That way we're all sharing the same message, the same thinking. We have the answers that we're sharing with staff. Also finding like the little fine tuning tweak things like ensuring that all of our staff have access to the forms. Like one of the pieces is teachers have started to form their early PLCs. And then there were a couple of teachers who are absent who are joining a PLC. How do I go back into that form and resubmit it? So it also is like the technology, the smaller tweaks, and that's coming up this week for myself and shout out to Jeff Chong, who has been a major help inside of building this out. He and I have taken on the task of building out the forms and learning the technological aspects and trying to find a group of teachers to pilot it. So that's what we're focused on, trying to make sure that before we hit the October 4th PLC number 2 date, that we have all of the little fine tuning and tweak things done so that teachers only have to focus on what outcome do I want for students and what tactic or instructional strategy am I going to put in place and learn about to help students get to that outcome.
Thank you so much. All right, so our next topic on the agenda is the donation from Peak Performance.
So according to the board policy, we receive a gift that's valued over $500. I have to inform the board. We got a generous gift from a local vendor called Peak Performance for $957.15. That helped modify our 2 aluminum soccer goal posts to fit in the existing field goal posts. And that not only we would get the donation, but that was a cost avoidance of several $1,000s if we were to go and get it otherwise. So wanted to make sure that we thank Peak Performance Fabrications for their generous donation.
Very much.
Nothing is for the person where these located.
On soccer field.
No, I mean.
Oh, the Peak
High
Performance.
school, lower.
Oh, they're at the high school. Yeah, on the turf field. Yeah, they just got put back on. They were off. They got fabricated. They got put.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah.
All right, next is our liaison update. So as we've had now new changes in roles and new changes in membership, this is the time to review our liaison assignments. So we're gonna go through and just see if there's any shifting around. Yes.
Can I just, because I know this question came up last time.
Sure.
And we just checked under Robert's rule, I printed it up and it's very clear that the chair
Mhm.
should not be listed as a standing member, so. I just want to clean that up.
Yep, so that's where we're gonna be addressing
Yep,
that.
perfect.
So we definitely will have an opening to remove myself from budget and fiscal planning, and then we will need somebody to chair the facilities at the least in terms of changes that we'll need to make tonight, and then we can make any other changes as well that we'd like to do.
It's also brought to our attention, there might have been a formatting issue in the electronic version, so if anyone wants a
Oh.
paper copy, we have them.
I would-
So do we want to start with budget and fiscal? Is there anybody interested in joining that committee?
Crickets.
And is there a need, like, do we, if nobody replaces your role on that committee, do we meet the minimum requirement? That would
That's a
be-
great question. I think. That's a great question.
You can run the meetings with a minimum of 2, you just can't have 5.
Okay,
Exactly.
that's the risk,
Yeah,
right?
four.
The risk
That's
is-
the risk.
yeah.
And I think we've been trying to do the chair plus 3 just because of like scheduling flexibility. But in essence, if we didn't, we would be okay
We could
with
live
the 3 on
along.
there.
Yeah.
I mean, I can also attend that like ex officio, but so like quorum purposes. So
And those meetings would be right before board meetings, you know.
typically, Karina, that's how you're scheduling.
I'm
it.
sorry, what was the
The
question?
scheduling of when you're usually,
Typically, they're held, yeah,
So people can know, you know, in terms of.
yeah, we haven't established a schedule for
No, no, no.
this year yet, but yeah, typically it's the hour before the board meeting.
and then we'll need somebody to chair facilities. Ellen?
So I'd be interested in being on the committee. I chaired in the past. If nobody else wants to be chaired on the existing committee, I'd be glad to do that.
Not my vote.
That for facilities, is that
Facilities.
that'd be great.
Okay, thank you, Ellen. Any other requested changes, people that want to either come off or switch their assignments at this point for our main 4, budget, fiscal, policy, personnel, or facilities? Okay, hearing none. Any other changes that we want to make to ad hoc committees? So we have strategic planning, which is chaired by Karen, with Eileen and Karina. Any changes there that we'd like to make or any additions? Yes, Jack.
Question, have there ever been consideration or is it reasonable or appropriate to have a student ad hoc committee?
I think we just need to clarify what the purpose is of.
Well, I'm looking, I see custodians, superintendents, administrators, nurses, paraprofessionals, secretaries.
So those are for
Those are
contract
contract.
negotiations.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Answered my question.
We don't want our.
You want a contract? You guys wanna get paid?
Jack, we don't want them unionizing.
Oh, that would be fun.
Don't get any ideas.
You reading Lord of the Flies, some.
Okay,
I
yes,
was just gonna say that we do get student input when it's, not necessarily at a meeting, but if we're developing a policy like the dress code, that we've gotten feedback from students.
Yeah, that was my mistake.
for the field light committee, because the committee is defunct, do we need to keep that one intact, I guess, is a question, or can we remove that one?
We had always kept it there to
Just in
repurpose it for whatever the next
For
thing.
lights.
It was originally turf field, then it got
Then
morphed
light.
into field lights.
The wall and walkways.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So she had always kept it there, but I don't know.
Is the walkway and wall, is that?
It's done.
It's
done.
Yeah, everything's done.
It was
finalized this summer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should there be a wall warming
Yeah.
reception?
They're
Because
just-
I thought
yeah,
there was talk of doing that.
Yeah.
It never happened, right?
So a plaque's been installed now, so Scott and I have been talking about, potentially doing something in the near future.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Would make good sense, right?
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I would just ask that, you could add my name as a
Yeah, I
co-chair.
was just gonna say that, yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, so we'll keep it there in the need and with the addition of Alan as the co-chair as you had been serving. Okay, demographics and enrollment, any changes requested there? Currently chaired by Karina with Jim and Jack. No. Okay. And then contract negotiation liaisons, any requested changes here?
Looks like we need to make a change for secretaries, right? Because that would just leave Karen and Kelly.
Karen and Trevor.
I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Are you doing this?
Sure.
The administrators. I'm always kind of. Yeah. on it.
You're a floater.
I like floater.
By virtue of your.
I can do that.
Yeah,
Pretty good on that.
so we'll definitely need to, we'll need to update for superintendent, anything that had Trevor Salmon here. So superintendent, nurses, and, non-bargaining unit employees.
Let me ask you
Jane made a
a
comment.
Superintendent? Is that what you're looking at too, Jane?
Yeah,
Yeah, she said that before.
that's okay. I mean,
Okay, I mean.
I don't have, I'm pretty light, so.
You want to take secretary?
Marina, you might want to be, yeah.
There's
I mean,
secretaries
do
and
you want to take
teachers.
secretaries, Jane? Because they're.
I could
Wait,
probably take both of those.
before we do these, we need to make sure that we're covered for Trevor's as well, so.
Yeah, so there's nurses, secretaries,
Nurses.
teachers.
Yeah,
Non-bargaining.
five total.
Okay,
Calendar.
So who's taking?
So far, we only got to superintendent, we're agreeable with Trevor's
yes,
spot. The custodians,
nurses, if there's any,
you don't technically need a third, nobody wants to do
okay,
it.
Alan is volunteer for that,
For which one?
for nurses, John.
Take Trevor's spot.
Yep.
Secretaries, I'd love a buddy,
I can be your buddy.
thank you.
So just a clarifying question, because I think it's on the board for ex officio, but I don't know if I can't serve in those committees, right?
I'm crossing your name off of all of them. And your ex officio on everything.
But that, what I'm saying is just for clarification purposes, does that cover only for boards or is that also for negotiate? Because we had Trevor in those roles before.
Yeah.
I know, and it should have been.
It should have been.
Everything, your
Okay.
negotiations, your
Okay.
everything.
Perfect.
So Jane is taking counties on secretaries.
I'd be up for teachers too.
And Jane's taking,
Can we add another? I'd be interested in teachers, or are we gonna keep it at 3?
teachers is a big one.
Yeah, I'm about to say, it seems like we could use four.
Okay.
Schedule, we're not sure. I'd be happy to do that as well.
Okay, so volunteer for non-bargaining unit employees,
Thank you, Jim.
wherever that may be, so we can tell me.
Jim, you're joining the non-bargaining?
Non-bargaining. So it's Karina for superintendent, Alan for nurses. Jane is joining secretaries, Jane and Alan are joining teachers, and then Jim for non-bargaining.
And just a formatting note, Steve's name is sort of floating up there, and that really, I think, is probably paraprofessionals.
So we were talking about some of
Okay, I was
the
wondering-
formatting
Yeah,
that's
it didn't
happening
even work
in
in
the,
yeah.
even maybe
Sure.
potentially like changing this to make Trent's life a little bit easier, so
Like
it's
the
not in the
table or
same
something.
form, yeah, and then in a different format,
Yeah, with the Excel's.
yeah.
Yeah, because then you can sort it.
We gave Trent free license to pick any format that he wants earlier today, so. Okay, so special committees, for the district calendar committee, we'll have to take Trevor off.
I can go back on that,
Karen,
unless somebody else would like to jump on.
any other interest?
Yeah, sure. I can do the calendar, I was on before.
I'm sorry, what was that last one?
Calendar, Alan and Karen. Dave, Eileen, still interested in representing us there. Any interest in the learn position? We haven't had anybody on that for a bit. I think primarily because of scheduling.
Yeah.
I thought you had volunteered for that.
Timing.
I remember talking about that,
Yeah.
with, wasn't
With
Steve
Steve.
on it? And
Yeah.
Steve had
So
been
maybe he
trying
came
to fill
off and
in.
then I didn't, okay.
Is that something you're interested in?
Yeah, I really don't know. I don't know when that's gonna kick in.
They do meet during the day.
Which I can use, especially if it's in the morning, that should be.
So why don't we?
Thursdays.
Yeah, I think so
Okay.
as well. Why don't we do this, Jane? We'll put you down here and if it becomes a challenge, then we adjust. If that's okay by you.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And then you ask Eileen still, okay, that's on assignment. That's good. All right, I think we made it through all of them. Okay. And then next is the cable word application. So, similar to many, many years now in the running, we are going to be applying for the cable word for our level 2. This entitles a number of different things that have to hit in the application. Try to put them all in the memo that's in the board piece as well as an essay. The application is actually on file here in the book if anybody would like to take a look at it or has any questions or would like to review. But if there's any questions on that, take those passes tonight.
But does there need to be a motion first to agree to apply for it and then second and then we?
There will, yeah, wanted to open it up. So we'll just need to have a motion to move forward with the application. So moved by Eileen, second it. Any seconds on the board? For applying for the award. Jane. Thank you, Jane. Any further questions or discussions on the matter?
Leaving you hanging.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Motion passes. Okay, and then we have our reports by your administration. So, we'll start with Goodwin. Any questions for Huston? Based off the reports, Eileen.
Huston, could you share what actually One Book, One Town initiative is?
So the Early Childhood Committee is involved with youth and family and promoting One Book, One Town. So we've done this for a number of years. And our connection to this year is going to be through our art program, where we're going to be doing a art project related to One Book, One Town. I'm not sure what that's going to look like yet, but I'm excited that all our kids will have opportunity to participate.
So One Book, so when I read it, One Book, One Town initiative, so it's not necessarily a book. They can be demonstrating their relationship to Old Saybrook.
No, I believe it is a book. I'm not sure what book has been picked, but I know we're going to do an art project related to that book and its themes.
Also, May, I don't know if you're able to disclose it, but terrific donation for offering scholarships to Goodwin students for music.
Yes, there is a group out of Essex that is working with all local schools on providing them with scholarships for music lessons. I'm going to be meeting with them shortly, so I'll have more information about that. But it's exciting that we're going to, pinpoint from some students that may not have that opportunity normally to participate, to get involved in music at a young age.
Is that the program that they were doing with violins?
No, this is totally separate.
So separate, not in school, not in school.
Correct.
Heston, just a question, the second to last bullet, it refers to vector training, so professional development, I'm not familiar with that. What is vector?
Yeah, vector training is something that's mandated by the state on various topics like bloodborne pathogens, for example.
Okay.
So they're online training programs that we have to offer to all of our staff.
I got it, thank you.
Some of us have already gone through it.
Discard everyone in the room that works there.
So next we'll move on to the middle school. Any questions on the administrator report for the middle school? Eileen.
So for grade 8 leadership group, what students are composed of the leadership group that come up before? What are the criteria to be part of the leadership group?
Yep. So any student can apply to be in the leadership group. Typically, we try to take everybody that applies, but they are required to apply for it. They have to go and get some recommendations from teachers. Basically, it's just like a little checklist, but it's really the idea behind it is that we want them to start to learn what it's like to have to be accountable for themselves and to be really reflecting on their actions. So they do have to follow school expectations. They're expected to not necessarily, they have to show a lot of effort in their classes. Doesn't mean that they have to be meeting every standard. It's really about showing effort, making sure that they're doing their work, making sure that they're meeting the school-wide expectations. And they are held to that level throughout the school year. But while they are in the program, they're also learning additional leadership skills from folks in the building and our community and beyond.
Because it says here that I think some of the additions is going to Hartford, going to Wesleyan, those groups take trips to see leaders, perhaps.
Yes, that is a continuation of what we've done last year. So we did do the Wesleyan trip last year. This year we have the opportunity to go to the Capitol, so we're going to be doing that.
So it's a group that meets like after school as well?
It actually meets during the school day, typically during their lunch period, so that they give up a time. They also do things within the school building and make decisions about some things within the school building along with the executive leadership team. So they kind of work together on a variety of things in the school.
Thanks. And how many students are involved?
This year, it's typically about a quarter to a third. I don't remember the exact number at the moment, though. I'm sorry.
Thanks.
Chris and Matt, just a comment from me, you know, in terms of the sports clubs and, you know, great variety of clubs that you're offering. I don't know if any of them are new this year, but it's impressive in terms of the variety of clubs and sports, that the kids can be part of. The field hockey team adding that is great. I guess the high school team had 31 students go out for the field hockey team. So you build a feeder program to the middle school program. That's fantastic. So, you know, well done.
Yeah, we were lucky enough to be able to have enough students to be able to put a team together this year. So that was really great for them and for the high school program going forward.
Hey, Krista, just a question on like club scheduling. I know that's like dependent on facilitators and interest and all of those things. Just in turn, do you ever get any feedback in terms of like the balance between availability of clubs and sport? Like I know a ton of kids participate in our sports versus like clubs, and usually the sports schedules come out a lot earlier than kind of some of the club offerings. So
we try. Unfortunately, I think when students are in sports, it does make them harder to be a part of some of the clubs just because there's so much more time commitment that it doesn't leave a lot of extra room. So that does make it a little bit more challenging, but we do try to spread out activities throughout the entire school year. So different things start different times during the year. So if a student is in, say, a fall sport, they might have the opportunity to be involved in different activities in the winter or the spring.
perfect, thank you. Any other questions for the middle school? If not, we will move on to the high school.
Question, Joe, I know that some candidates have come to the high school, just to, you know, share some of the upcoming elections. So I was wondering, in the social studies classes or civics, are they reaching out to students to register to vote? Because it's really, you know, a neutral staff member or anything like that.
We
Like
had
a
the,
presidential,
sorry.
like a president, that's okay, presidential, you know.
The town actually reached out, and we've done this before where they come during lunch and we encourage students who are old enough to vote to register. So we'll be setting up a table, you know, during lunch waves to accommodate that. It's great.
Thank you so much.
Questions for Dr. Fletcher, curriculum instruction assessment.
So Dr. Fletcher, just in terms of the 3%, 4% increases, that's great, you know, from math and science respectively. What age group is that we're testing and we're using those numbers from? I'm not familiar with that.
Sure, those numbers are coming from our smarter balance assessments, and science is the NGSS assessment, the NGSS science assessment.
And that age group?
The age group for the smarter balance is grades 3 through 8. And for the NGSS science assessment is 5, 8, and grade 11.
Thank you. That's great news.
Yes.
Moving on to operations, facilities, finance. Any questions for Pam? Yes.
And this is a question, but I have this for the same meeting that Chris went to, and went to that in terms of passing, you know, the money for the HVAC. It's really, you know, terrific and very well explained in layman's terms for people that were there by the first selectman. So it was pretty clean and gave some history, and I thought it was good.
Could I make a comment related to that? It's just an opportunity to get some feedback back. In the minutes that they sent out from the meeting, it indicates that $2 million were allocated to the track upgrade. So I think it's a typo in the minutes.
Yes.
So I don't know if you saw that or had the opportunity to circle back.
No, I didn't. I generally don't have the opportunity to review the town meeting minutes, so I did not.
Yeah,
catch
it's like,
that.
I think it's there's a comma missing, but the amount of numbers that are there indicates 2,800,000.
Was it in the minutes or was it in the call of the meeting?
It's in the minutes that were sent out to people who subscribe to the town meeting notifications. So that those minutes were sent out as, I don't know when they would have been approved, because they're typically approved at next meetings, but
That was my first town meeting, so,
yeah,
I was a
just
but I would
I'll take it.
imagine
I'll
that
I'll
I'll
forward it
look
to you.
into it.
If you
I'll
have it,
forward
that
it
would
to
be
you.
great.
Yeah,
then,
yeah. Yeah, I was like, I think not only is a comma missing, but there's an extra number here.
Yeah, I don't recall that.
Was it
Yeah, it was only
280
it was 254,000,
Okay,
something
yeah.
like that,
There's.
was the balance of the funding that we needed,
Yeah.
that was gonna go in and out. So, yeah, definitely not. Two.
No, I was like, wow. Inflation.
Yeah.
Yes,
So Pam, this is sorry, just first of all, congratulations. I wasn't here on the board when you were appointed as a director, so good for
Thank
you.
you.
Congratulations for your hard work. Just a quick question on the 3.35% unexpended in that budget. Is that year-over-year typical in comparison or?
It is not typical. It was one of our larger unexpended balances that we had. I mean, if you take COVID out of the picture, which was a complete anomaly. But in perspective, and I had said at the town meeting as well, I had been, kind of sweating the number, trying to work on moving forward some projects that we could get done. But then in reviewing the report and everything, I'm like, all right, well, 3.35 isn't that bad. It's still a lot of money to have unexpended, but because of the variety of circumstances, having a superintendency open for a period of time, having the business assistant open for 6 months, and also the caveat of being short-staffed also means you don't have enough staff to get the projects going and to focus on getting things done. So it was a multitude of factors that kind of got us there.
Thank you for that explanation. Appreciate that.
and next are questions on the student service report. Okay. Yep. Okay, and then athletics extracurricular activities.
You gotta go to Chris's, I must have missed it. Did you do superintendent's?
No, we're not there yet. Okay, now we're there. So if you want to be.
Thanks so much. Yeah, Chris, thanks for sharing that, about the AEDs. The defibrillators. And the reason that I brought it up is because I was listening to the radio and it said something about a school system in Texas. And, a student needed it and a lot of those weren't even tested and they didn't work. So I was just really curious, just in our district, you need it, and it doesn't work and how often we really haven't used it,
You hope you don't.
That's right.
I did work in a district where we had to use it, so I know they're there and they're
They
self-explanatory.
work.
Yes, they're similar to if you've ever seen like a newer model EpiPen. Sometimes they're verbal instructions, they're set up in that way too. So there is training, but there's also available for the public to use in the event you're not trained on it, but you're in an emergency situation in one of our buildings, you have the ability to use it.
Is there a QA calibration schedule that somebody, does the OSPD come through, or just to get to that comment about it doesn't work, right? I imagine there's a date by which they need to be inspected.
Maintenance type, I don't know the exact time on that.
Just helpful to
And
know.
that probably lives with the
Yeah.
police department, or?
Yeah.
I think there was something very recently done by the chief, and I think there was an education for CPR overall, and this was just 2 or 3 years ago, very recent, and they made quite a big deal about making sure that the AEDs were up to speed, and I think they actually, I don't know if they were all replaced then.
It's not so much a replace, they've pads that
Sorry.
expire.
Okay.
And it's going through and checking, the pads for expiration dates and making sure those are replaced and up to date. And that's done on a periodic basis.
And I think we did have to use it at one time.
We did, yeah. We did, right.
Maybe can you share about what the regional remote learning project is?
Sure, so we are part of it's being organized through Learn, but there's some, member shoreline districts. And the nexus of the program was to try to offer students opportunities that they can't really get offered in their home districts because it's based on soccer. It's still in its infancy stages. I know there was some media reports about it and I didn't see the media report. But originally the course listing that was shared was kind of a variety of anything that's possibly out there, just to gauge an interest from students. The logistics haven't totally been worked out yet as far as who's going to teach them, who's going to administer, who's going to house them. The vast majority of the programs are remote. There is an in-person component to that, but there's still some questions surrounding the districts that are, I was gonna say competing districts, we're not competing, we're all in this consortium together. About who would actually be selected to teach the course, depending on student interest, where the in-person piece would be housed, how we would get students there, because all these opportunities are after school and weekends. And the teaching component of it is all voluntary, but we don't have all of the agreements in place yet to formally say this is what we would be able to offer. So it's some cart got a little bit before the horse with some of the media reports on it. It was in one of the local papers. I didn't see it. But we're still in the process. I actually have a meeting tomorrow morning to hopefully sort of get some more direction on where we're gonna go.
So they used to do this several years ago. They did it on shoreline schools.
Okay, so they've done this in the Hartford area before,
Mhm.
and then COVID hit, and then I think there was some concern that this was gonna replace in-person learning, which is never the intent on any of this. It's really to offer smaller districts, students in smaller districts, opportunities that their home sending district can't.
Correct.
But the courses are all gonna be based upon the initial survey of what courses kids would be interested in. I think that's gonna shift, because when this process started well before my tenure, it was one of the, we don't know how the seriousness of the student response was or the teacher response was, so we're still working those kinks out. So again, another thing I can't answer definitively today, but I hope to in the very near future.
I'm glad you went to the CAPS legislative meeting.
I did. You may know someone there.
All right, so we'll move on to reports by the board committees and liaisons, if there are any. I know we're early in the process and probably most of us have not fully met yet or maybe made some movement since the first board meeting, but we'll open this up. So anything for from budget and fiscal.
Right, so we haven't met yet. You probably saw in Pam's report that there are some proposed dates for our committee to meet, so we'll have to review that to see if those jive with our schedule, and then we'll begin the process.
Kate.
So CAVE is moving towards their annual conference. I wanted to make sure that I submitted everybody's email. Are you getting any kind of advocacy reports from CAVE? Remember I asked at the last meeting, I just want to make sure that you're getting them, or so.
Yeah.
You are? Okay, great. Wonderful. Yeah, so they're moving toward their conference that will happen in November. I will be presenting on student voice, student representation on boards of education, policy and practice, and yes, some great speakers. So I don't know if anybody's here planning on going.
Who's the keynote speaker? Have they identified one?
Sorry?
Who is the keynote speaker?
They have actually, one of them is Shriver, Tim Shriver. That's Saturday, and then on Friday. And then on Saturday morning, they're bringing someone from the Mashpaka Pequot. Talk about equity and.
And do you have a days handy by any chance? You can let me know after, sorry. You don't. Thank you.
Okay, facilities, so this will, we're now passing the torch over to Ellen. We have not done anything Alan clearly does not have anything yet to report, I don't
Not a
think.
clue.
And we have not met yet for the season, but we will get that up and running whenever you are ready. Learn, like I said, we haven't really had any representation there, so I don't think we have anything yet, but Jane will look forward to your reports in the future, potentially, if you can make that work. I would imagine strategic planning is fairly quiet here.
Very quiet, yes. Very, very quiet. We're strategically quiet.
Yeah,
Yes.
strategically quiet, and demographics as well. Yep.
Yep.
Personnel,
The only thing coming up for personnel is our superintendent board leadership evaluation. Evaluation coming up in, I don't have the date, next month. Twenty-second, October 22nd. Again, just a reminder, that's an opportunity for you for any topics for discussion. We do a nice dinner at 5 and,
And we'll be
Dan
will be here.
Dan will always, as always, facilitates. It's always a good time. So look forward to that.
perfect, thank you, Karen. Policy, Eileen.
Yep, so I've been actually talking to Trent and finding out, when some of the updates are gonna be coming in from Shipman Goodwin. Because I think he said, I think it was this September 27th or something, but we're gonna just be looking at that. We'll put together, like I always do, sit with the superintendent and put together a policy agenda and let everybody know.
I have some questions that cross over between policy and administration, if I could just, and I think they've been mentioned during the meeting, so I feel okay just asking the question. The first is, and this touches on CABE notification. I attended a CABE webinar on the new legislation related to cell phone policy. And so, I guess the need to create a cell phone policy that's in support of the legislation, right?
Not really legislation yet, it's more guidance from the
Okay,
State Department.
from okay, that's, sometimes it's difficult to
Yes,
discern
gray area.
what's legislation or what they're mandating by the board. So is that something that, like, is Shipman and Goodwin looking at that for us to help then drive policy, or? is it something we
If,
should
in
be-
the event the board needs to create a policy around, yes, although that's not legislation, sometimes
Mhm.
Shipman will take pieces, so, yes, I have seen an abbreviated version of the Shipman legislative update. I don't have it in its entirety. My understanding is they're gonna hold off on that until Friday when we have the legislative update. That was a hot topic within the MISA organization, which you can come to speak with.
Yeah, okay. And another question I have with respect to athletics, and I realize that, I think he's not on the line. We have a policy that requires our student athletes to maintain certain grade requirements, and with the increase of students attending out of district schools how are we assuring that those students who are at magnet schools, et cetera, but participating in sports on our teams are maintaining the necessary requirements? Or,
Yeah, the CIAC.
CIAC
Right,
standards across them.
right, but who's looking, right? Who
It's
is,
still our team, so they would, the sending school would have to report back. We have some reciprocation in.
okay, all right, because I know in the past, there was some concern about that. I just wanted to read the question, so as long as we've got a process in place. And then my last question is with respect to the dress code policy that you had mentioned. This is probably the second full year or the beginning of the second full year of implementation. So this is sort of a Joe, so Chris knows this. How are we ensuring adherence to the dress code policy, which was student led, right? Student voice was
Incorporated, yeah.
yeah, and so, right, we had some students first day of school who didn't meet the dress code requirements.
So
That's what I
the
found
question
out
is
about.
the implementation of the policy and the reg, right?
Yeah, like what does that look like for students and administration at the high school?
So thank you for sharing that we had a dress code policy that had participated student voice. But that would be implemented and monitored by the high school administration. I believe the issue in question happened on the way in.
Right,
On the
yeah,
first day.
yeah, yeah,
So I have been having conversations with my colleagues at the high school. Once students enter the building,
Yeah.
those issues would be addressed.
okay.
So the one that you had caught, I was there, it was out front, prior to the students' arrival.
All right, those are just the questions that I had. Thank you.
Yeah, check.
Yes, Eileen, I'd like to ask a meeting of the policy committee to discuss policy surrounding foreign exchange students, as there was a resident of Old Saybrook that intended to have foreign exchange student this year, but because we do not have a policy, that student is in Westbrook Public School. And the same resident intends to have one for next school year.
Actually, interesting question, because Chris and I met on that earlier in the summer. And we looked at it, and I think with his recommendation, we really needed to address it. I talked to Cabe as well about, foreign language student, or some student coming in and out. There are a lot of pieces to it. It's not just, we agree to have them, but there's a lot of specifics that need to be put in there in terms of, parent communication, so it's what we believe. But, Chris and I talked about it, we thought it wasn't really ready to move forward.
Yeah, I think there's certain things without having the presence of a policy. There's certain protections that the board has to have in place. For instance, does the student need to have a visa in place? Does the student have, you have to ensure that student had previously graduated from their home country? Certain things along that, and absent of a board policy, I think there was an impression that I can just accept somebody and I have the authority to do that. So I had reached out to Eileen in her chairmanship of the policy committee and asked if we get that on the first agenda. We have some models to share with the committee, but as you know, the committee hasn't met yet. So that's
Yeah, I'm asking
the
that
intention.
put a date in the calendar so we can get that ball rolling.
It would be on the agenda, when we have a policy committee meeting, so it's not
We have some
overloaded
models
as well.
ready to go.
I'd like to be involved with that, so if you could just make that meeting public.
Sure.
The notice, I appreciate that.
All right, and then for chairman report, I don't have anything formal yet as my first is official after being voted in. We are talking about a couple different things that our superintendent Jarosek and I did this afternoon. One of them was incorporating student voice into these meetings and presentations and some of the ways that we will be taking a look at that moving forward. The other piece, just to kind of circle back on, is since it's new chair, new superintendent, new process, it's just cycling back on how we make requests for information, how we share that amongst the board, how we also make sure that we are putting in requests for agenda topics, etc. So you will see some of that guidance coming out from me shortly, just so we can circle back, and then we can also talk about that at the leadership meeting this fall. So that's all I have for today. Okay. All right, we have reminders at the bottom, and then we'll just need a motion to adjourn.
Before we do, what's the date of the professional?
Yeah, I was gonna ask the same thing. It's
Not listed, it's an item listed, but the date of it isn't listed.
Oh, the half day is on October 4th.
Thank you.
Okay. Motion to adjourn by Alan, seconded by Jane. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Didn't think so. So thank you. Have a wonderful night.